put 50 up for sale on that Wednesday, having promoted it, I think, on the Monday. And we sold the first 50 in like under a minute. And we were like, okay, this is a thing. Everyone from like the Spice Girls to Stormzy to all these people made these kits. It was huge on Instagram and it saved the company.
This is an interview between me and Thom Elliot, who is the co-founder of the really successful pizza chain, Pizza Pilgrims. It's incredibly exciting because Pizza Pilgrims has been around now for 10 years, and it actually started on a bit of a whim when Thom and his brother decided that they were going to quit their corporate jobs that they didn't enjoy, and they were going to do a little pilgrimage to Italy to learn about how pizzas are being made. And then while in Italy, they bought a pizza van, they drove it all the way back to the UK, and they started their first store in 2012.
We were like obsessed with pizza. That's the thing. That's what we're going to do to break into this world. Then obviously after we'd come down off that initial high, it was like, oh, we know nothing about pizza at all. We have no skills, no understanding. We need to figure it out. So that's when we realized that we needed to go to Italy to understand what it's all about.
And so in this very wide-ranging conversation, we talk about how they took that plunge initially to quit their boring corporate jobs and do this rogue thing like starting a pizza business. We talk about some of the challenges of entrepreneurship as it relates to having a food business and all of the various different issues and challenges associated with that. And Thom shares a bunch of really, really helpful advice that's useful for me and that's useful for any entrepreneur, whatever stage of the journey you're at.
If you have that thing in you, whatever that is, to want to start a business, I just think you've got to go for it early. Like if you're going to do it as early as you possibly can. It annoys me that we don't encourage people straight after their A-levels, definitely straight after university, to go and have a crack at something.
This episode is sponsored by Kajabi, and they've actually got something really valuable for all of our deep dive listeners. Now, if you haven't heard of Kajabi, it's basically a platform that helps creators diversify their revenue with courses and membership sites and communities and podcasts and coaching tools. So it's one of the best places for creators and entrepreneurs to build a sustainable business. We started using Kajabi earlier this year, and as soon as we started using it, we were like, oh my God, why haven't we been using this product for the last 3 years? It's got everything you'd possibly need for running an online course or hosting an online community or building an online coaching business. And it essentially makes it really easy to run your entire online business, from payments to marketing tools to analytics. Kajabi has everything that we creators need all in one place. And actually, you don't necessarily need a huge audience to generate a sustainable income. A creator on Kajabi can, for example, make $100,000 by converting just 350 customers a year, depending on your price points. And in fact, there are creators on the platform that are making millions of dollars every year with fewer than 100,000 followers across the social media platforms. We've been using Kajabi to host all of our online courses since the start of 2023, from our $1 part-time YouTuber foundations to help people start off on their YouTube journey, all the way up to our $5,000 package for the part-time YouTuber accelerator, which gives you access to me and my team. And Kajabi does not take any cut of what you earn. Creators keep and own everything. The way Kajabi makes money is through the monthly subscription fee, and even though we generate like literally millions of dollars every year from Kajabi, we're still only paying them a couple of $100s a year. And actually, in their lifetime, Kajabi have paid out over $6 billion to creators, that's billion with a B, and over 1,000 creators have become millionaires through products on the platform. Now, back in May 2023, I did a keynote at a Kajabi in real life Kajabi Heroes event in Austin, Texas. And in that keynote, I talked about the exact steps that I used to grow my business from zero to over $2.5 million per year from course revenue alone. Now, people paid for the pretty expensive tickets to watch this keynote at the Kajabi Hero live event, but as an exclusive deal for deep dive listeners, Kajabi have very kindly offered to provide the recording of that keynote completely for free to anyone who listens to this podcast. So if you're interested in getting completely free access to that keynote, just head over to kajabi.com/Ali. That's kajabi.com/ALI. And that'll be linked in the show notes and the video description as well. You just enter your email address and then you will get the recording of that keynote completely for free, whether or not you ever become a Kajabi customer. So thank you so much to Kajabi for sponsoring this episode. This episode is very kindly brought to you by none other than Huel. Now, I've been a paying customer of Huel since 2017. I first discovered it in my 5th year of medical school. And if you haven't heard of it, it's basically a meal in a bottle. And in that meal, you get a balanced mixture of carbohydrates and fats and proteins and fiber. And it also contains 26 different vitamins and minerals. And each meal has around 400 calories and 22 grams of protein. So it's pretty reasonable in terms of protein count. And because I tend to be pretty busy and there's always stuff going on, I tend not to really have time to get a healthy breakfast or a healthy lunch. And so I'll often use Huel ready to drink as a replacement for my breakfast or my lunch. They've got 8 different flavors that are available. My 2 favorites are banana and salted caramel, so if you find those, you should check them out. And even though Huel as a company started off online, direct to consumer, recently they've propagated amongst all of like the grocery stores in the UK at least, and so I've been seeing it out and about everywhere, which is pretty cool. And very excitingly, we also have an episode with Julian Hearn, who is the founder of Huel, back on this podcast from season 1. And so that episode was a real masterclass in entrepreneurship, and it was really cool hearing the story of exactly how Huel came together. So head over to huel.com/deep dive, and thank you so much, Huel, for sponsoring sponsoring this episode. This season is once again being sponsored very kindly by Trading 212. Now, people ask me all the time for investment advice because they see that I've made money and I've made videos talking about where I'm investing that money. The thing that Warren Buffett and basically everyone who's sensible in the space recommends, which is to invest in broad stock market index funds, which you can do completely for free using Trading 212. Trading 212 is a fantastic app that lets you invest in stocks and shares and funds in a commission-free fashion. And they've got a bunch of features which are really helpful, which is why I personally use Trading 212 to manage a portion of my portfolio. So firstly, they've got this great pies and auto invest feature. So if you're interested in potentially getting into investing, what you can do is you can browse the different pies that different people have created on the platform. So you might get like a hedge fund trader who's gone onto the platform and has created a pie of investments, having done a bunch of research and stuff. And that pie might be like, I don't know, 20% Apple, 20% Tesla, 10% this, 10% that, but it's generally way more complicated than that. And you can see the performance of that particular pie of stocks and shares and funds. And then if you want to copy that pie into your own account, you can just copy and paste it directly in. And then you can invest any amount of money and it will automatically split it according to the allocation in the pie. So if you wanted to just play around with £100 and you were like, okay, that pie looks good, it will split out that £100 based on the allocations of the pie, which is pretty sick. They've also recently added support for multi-currency accounts. Now this is really helpful because, for example, if you invest in the S&P 500, which is a US-based index fund, then you won't get hit with all the various foreign exchange fees if, for example, you're investing from the UK like I do. And if you have an Invest or an ISA account, then Trading 212 also gives you daily interest on your uninvested cash in pounds or euros or US dollars. So if any of that sounds up your street, then do please hit the link in the video description or in the show notes, and that will let you sign up to Trading 212. And if you use that link, you will also get a completely free share up to the value of £100. So it's literally free money, so you might as well. So thank you so much, Trading 212, for sponsoring this episode. Tom, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming on. So you quit your job and started a pizza company, which has now just celebrated its 10-year anniversary. So that's all really rogue. What was the origin story? How did you get started?
I love how success in restaurants these days is just survival. Like that is literally like high five everyone, 10 years. But no, it's been a mad journey. It was I worked in advertising. I started the company with my brother. I have to admit it was his idea. I was very much the sort of enabler of his idea. But I was working in advertising. My brother was working in TV production. We had grown up literally above a pub. Our parents had run a pub. We had lived above it and sort of had that sort of hospitality thing in our veins. And yeah, we had both been in London for sort of 5-7 years doing jobs that we really didn't enjoy, didn't get a kick out of it at all. Had tried a couple of times to like maybe start a pub of our own, but we had no capital. We had no kind of experience, so no one would have backed us. And so we were sort of a bit sort of stuck, I guess. And then just out of nowhere, like a sort of an amazing revelation, this food truck, street food revolution happened in London. And suddenly it was possible to, create a credible, quality-led brand, but have no capital and start it in the back of a food truck.
What do you mean you can start a food business without capital?
So like, honestly, I genuinely believe, and this is like me kind of getting carried away with myself, but I think in the sort of world of food, which does like to kind of like self-reflect quite a lot, in 50 years' time, we'll look back on like 2010 to 2012, very much how we look back on like 1961 to 1963 in music terms, just like a sort of an explosion of like creativity, all the right things in all the right places, Twitter just landing, street food trucks becoming a thing. Obviously, just off the back of a big recession, so lots of people having lost their jobs, looking to kind of start afresh. And I still think in London particularly, like so many of the great brands that went on to become something bigger all started in that time, like your Dishoom's, your Flatirons, your Patty and Buns, your Honest Burgers, Caravan. I mean, you could go on forever. There are so many fantastic brands that like started in that moment. But our particular way in was street food, and it was, like I said, we were looking around for a way to get in. I mean, restaurants famously, they require a bit of capital. They require you to put quite a lot on the line because you've got to build the bloody thing before you even open it.
Yeah.
And suddenly there was an opportunity to, we were like traveling across London, having seen on Twitter that there was, this meat wagon in a car park in New Cross or Peckham or whatever, and you'd go and there'd be, potentially hundreds of people waiting to try a burger, excited about the product, like a product-led business, all driven by Twitter and like this sort of like, it's going to be gone tomorrow, so we've got to go now type feeling. And it was a genuine thing, and that was another one. Meat Wagon became Meat Easy, became Meat Liquor, and that was one of the hottest restaurant openings of 2013 probably.
So we're in 2013. You and your brother are working the corporate jobs in your corporate jobs, which you're not particularly enjoying.
Yeah.
How do you get from there to let's start a food truck? Like that still feels a bit.
And there was a huge amount of like, I mean, everyone, a lot of eye rolls, eye raised, a lot of like, okay, here's another person who's lost their mind. But I mean, the short version is that we really wanted to do it. We were trying to find a way into the food business. My brother went and did for his 21st birthday, which had been a few years earlier. He'd gone and done like a sort of cookery class in Italy, which he'd been paid for by his grandmother. And he'd seen basically that everyone had pizza ovens in their gardens. And instead of a barbecue, people had a pizza oven. So then we had an idea we'd start a pizza oven company and like put pizza ovens into people's gardens. Then Jamie Oliver did that. So we were like, okay,
yeah.
feel like he's got this one. So, but the sort of idea of pizza remained. Then we had this kind of street food element. So, going down to Meat Wagon, going to King's Cross and seeing the guys on Eat Street and like, chatting to all those guys about, some of them were doing paella, some of them were doing hot dogs and understanding that life and just, again, seeing that, like, they were building real brands that had real Twitter following and had real people that came back every week to try it. And we looked at that scene and we were like, no one's doing pizza. That seems insane as like one of the world's great, if not the world's great food stuff. Why is no one doing pizza? Turns out the reason you're not doing pizza is because you have to buy a massive great oven, which costs you thousands of pounds, and you've got to carry the bloody thing around. So that was the reason why. But yeah, we were like obsessed with pizza. That's the thing. That's the thing that's what we're going to do to break into this world. Then obviously after we'd come down off that initial high, it was like, oh, we know nothing about pizza at all. We have no skills, no understanding. We need to figure it out. So that's when we realized that we needed to go to Italy to understand, birthplace of pizza, to understand what it's all about. So
question. Would love to dive into the pizza stuff, but I'm still intrigued. Like, you're like, I don't enjoy my job.
Yeah.
A lot of like, you could start a software business. You could start a YouTube channel. You could start anything other than a food business. Like, what was it about the food business that made you think that's the thing we want to do?
I think it is just that, like, genuinely, it's just that little human interaction thing of like giving someone a little bit of joy.
Yeah.
And we still try and do that. Like, street food is the most perfect distillation of that. There's no business in the world really where someone comes up to you, kind of like, Fisher Price business. Someone comes up to you and goes, can I have that thing that you sell? Here's a crisp £5 note. You go away, you make it for them to order. You then give it to them and then you watch them eat it.
Yeah.
And it's like this glorious feedback loop of like, you can actually ask them what they thought. You can learn from it. You kind of get this, it's got this real kind of immediacy energy that you just cannot get from anything digital or, it's just real. There's just no, I mean, that sounds so incredibly cringeworthy when I say it, but
no, not at all. It's quite inspiring, really. Like it's so true because like there's no other business where you literally make the thing and just give it to them.
Yeah.
Except maybe like build a bear or something.
Yeah. I mean, build a bear. Who doesn't wish they started that?
Yeah.
business?
I've got good margins.
Yeah.
So was it the pub background that helped with this or?
I think that's it. I think there's a little bit of, we were in the pub all the time. I worked behind the bar when I got old enough, all that kind of stuff. So that kind of constant human interaction, I guess you kind of crave, and it does provide that. I think there is just that feeling that, I don't know, hospital. You'll feel like you're sort of giving something back in some weird way, which you're totally not really, but you are, you're meeting an absolutely fundamental human need, which is to eat, and hopefully meeting it in an elevated way. Yeah. So it's like you're doing something exciting. I honestly don't think I could start a sushi business because I think cold food doesn't have that same emotional driver that hot food has.
That's true, yeah.
Like, I just don't think, it's always a choice that you're doing because you're trying to make a compromise, you're trying to be healthy, you're trying to be fast. Whereas I think like a hot cooked meal, it's never going to go away. Whenever, even if we end up in Ready Player One, you're still going to want to take that headset off and have a hot meal for sure. And so, yeah, I think, at a very deep level, we certainly didn't think about it this way at the time, but at a deep level, that was a thing. We wanted to be part of that. I think it's always, with the street food things particularly, it's nice to be part of a movement. And like we were there, certainly not the earliest, but like very much early in that world. And still, like, we know all those guys really well. Some of them have gone on to like do restaurants. Some of them are still doing the street food thing. I think we're both secretly quite jealous of those guys still doing the kind of street food festivals life, because it's it's hard work, really hard work. But it's also like once it's stopped, it's stopped.
Yeah.
You're not sitting there going like, oh God, got to do this or that or the other. It's, you do your festival and then you have a week off and it's like nice.
To what extent would you recommend the food business? If someone's listening to this and let's say they're working a corporate job and they're like, you know what, I want to start a business. I actually know a lot of people who are like, oh, I'd love to start a burger van or something like that.
Yeah.
To what extent would you recommend it?
I would recommend it so wholeheartedly.
Really?
If
okay.
it's for the love.
Okay.
Because there is no doubt, if you're like, I just want to make loads of money fast, food is the worst possible way to do that. It's incredibly, incredibly hard to like, get yourself going. It's hard work. It's hugely rewarding, but not necessarily financially. But if you want like a lifestyle business or something that's going to like just put you into interesting situations with interesting people or like throw crazy opportunities, that you never thought would come your way, and you're willing to work hard and like put the time and energy in. I mean, we've just loved every minute of doing a food business, and yeah, I really can't say it any clearer than that.
Nice. Okay, so you decide that you're going to start the food business, and you're like, cool, we have to go to Italy.
Yeah.
What happens next? So we go to Italy. I weirdly email my boss in the advertising agency being like, I've heard on the grapevine, we've not met, but you're starting a bakery in Cambridge, apparently. You're leaving to start a bakery in Cambridge. I'm leaving to start a pizza company. We should go and have a beer. Oh, which bakery was this?
It's called...
Can you remember?
It's called, really famous for Chelsea buns, called...
Cinnabon?
No.
Fitzbilly's?
Fitzbilly's.
Your boss started Fitzbilly's?
So Fitzbilly's is like an age-old business.
Okay, I was going to say, it's
from like
very old, isn't it?
Hundreds of years ago, or certainly tens and tens of years ago. It had fallen into disrepair, disrepute. Someone had given up on it, whatever. It was like, it was available to be sold. So in 2011, she had just bought it with her husband.
No way.
And was like, I'm going to transform this business.
Mate, I've been to Fitzbilly so many times, 2012 through 2018.
There you go.
When I get back to Cambridge, I start to go to Fitzbilly's, take my mum there, the cinnamon rolls with
we
tea.
We went recently because we very recently opened a Pizza Pilgrims in Cambridge.
Yeah.
And we always go on a little, because basically I emailed her, not knowing her, but saying like, you're obviously off to start this bakery. She was like, yeah, absolutely. We should totally come for a beer. Why don't you come to my house? She lives in Camden. Let's go for a beer in Camden. Went to meet her. What I didn't know was her husband was the food critic for the Financial Times.
Oh.
This guy called Thom Elliot, and he was the first person basically who like listened to our story, our idea, the fact that we were going to Italy, and was like, hell yes, this is a great idea. I'm super psyched about this. He was like the first human being that was like supportive of the plan.
So why was he supportive of it? Like,
I think he's got sort of this incredible like puppy-like enthusiasm about just everything to do with like food and lifestyle and cool stuff. Sorry, that wasn't us. Don't worry. He obviously he's a food critic. He's engaged with exciting food things. We were like obviously excited to go and learn about pizza and all that stuff. And he was just like, "This is an awesome idea. You need to make more of this pilgrimage. This should be a thing that you like really like lean on and like get the most out of." We mostly, if we're honestly truthful, the reason we were doing the pilgrimage was because it was cheaper to buy the van that we wanted in Italy because it was made in Italy than it was to get it imported.
You can drive it across.
So we were like, we'll pick it up, we'll drive it back, we'll save a load of money, and in the meantime, we'll kind of try and learn a bit about pizza. But he was like, you're missing the point. This is the best possible starting place for your business.
Okay, why?
Because he was like, this is pizza is the most saturated market in the world. You've got to find a reason why you're different.
Yep.
And at the very least, this is a fantastic story to start off with.
Like we went to Italy to
learn.
Okay.
And honestly, like that really, the whole thing was so unplanned, there was no strategy. It wasn't like, we'll do this in order to do this, in order to open a pizzeria. I literally was like, I hate my job. My brother's had this idea. I'm going to go and help him. So at the very least, I've got out of advertising and I've done something like vaguely productive.
Yeah. And
then probably in a year's time, I'll go and like disappear into the shadows. He can go and do that, and I'll go and find something else to do.
Were you in a TV show at one point?
So Tim, being super enthusiastic about the pizza, was like, this is the thing you need to make the most of. My brother worked in TV, so we then basically went away. We wrote a pitch, literally 2 sides of A4. Yeah. We sent it to 4 production companies. We sent it to like Optimum, who are a big food production company, Fresh One, which is Jamie Oliver's production company, another. And we sent it to a 4th, much smaller one, which is a friend of a friend of James's from TV called Rampage. They'd just started out. anyway, we sent off this pitch to all these shows. They all came back being like, we love this idea. We went and had meetings with all of them. But basically the bigger guys, we sat with Pat Llewellyn, she's the voice on the very original Jamie Oliver shows. She discovered Jamie Oliver. And she was like, I love this idea, really want to do it. But, it's July now, we're going to have to go away, fully plan it out. Then we have to go and pitch it to stations. Like, best case scenario, we're starting filming this in 18 months. Yeah. And I was like, well, we're leaving in 2 months. Yeah. So we're either doing it now or we're not doing it. This is not about the TV. This is very much about the business. So anyway, didn't do it with those guys. Rampage were like, look, we'll take a punt. We'll do it without a TV show, a TV channel. Let's just freaking go for it. And so we kind of set off and made this slightly random TV show where we elongated the pilgrimage. They kind of brought in some researchers. We ended up doing a lot more stops. And we made a TV show, which quite honestly was not a TV show that we were excited by when it started to happen. It was very clear that like their creative vision and our creative vision were very different. Yeah. They were paying for it, so we didn't really, and we were like right at the beginning of everything. We had no position to tell them what to do. And there was a TV show made, and the plus side was it gave us access that we couldn't have possibly imagined if we just rocked up on our own. Yeah. So like we went to Dan Michele, the world famous pizzeria in Naples, and they let us like see the dough room and like get into the kitchen and like get around it. Whereas if we turned up just two Muppets, they'd have been like join the queue, and absolutely not.
Yeah. Did you ever do a thing with like Nigella Lawson?
Never did. Mary Berry?
Mary Berry, maybe.
We did Mary Berry. We made pizza with Mary Berry.
Was that in her garden or something?
In her garden.
Oh, because when you said that story of like driving to Italy to get the van, I was like, I was watching a cooking show with my mum like 2 months ago, and I remember that story. So that was you guys.
It's literally insane how many people watch the Mary Berry show. The amount of people who watch that show.
I was just randomly watching it with my mum, and it was like you guys.
That was us
in the garden.
Yeah.
Telling the story and making the pizza.
Exactly, making a pizza, telling the story. Mary Berry is like exactly how you'd want it to be. Yeah. There was like a moment where the whole like shooting stops happening, and she she'd baked everyone cakes obviously for like the breaks, and there was the shooting stopped and we like went off to have a cigarette or whatever, and she like completely unironically went into her garden and like just gathered a bunch of wild flowers and just like came back and was like, here you go guys, here's some flowers. Wow. It was just like, Mary Berry, you're like everything I'd hoped you would be and more.
Nice. Sorry, I derailed with that excitement of like, wait a minute, I think I've seen this on TV. So you...
Completely separate. We made this TV show. It did end up featuring on the Food Network. I reckon about 27 or 28 people watched it in total, including my family. Nice. We were never very proud of it. I haven't actually watched the whole thing in total in myself. But it did two things that was amazing for us. It opened some doors in Italy and like allowed us to get into places that we couldn't otherwise have done. And I think it gave the business like a sort of momentum, a sort of fake momentum that meant that like people were kind of like, oh, this is coming up. This must be something, as opposed to like, does that make sense?
Yeah. So I guess like if we think of, within stories, I like to think of sort of takeaway lessons from people. It's like your brother taking advantage of the industry he was already in to be like, hang on, let's have a punt and see what we can do here. Yeah. Which is just, if someone didn't have access to that industry or didn't know that was a possibility, their brain wouldn't even have thought that it's an option to. Like, I have no idea what these companies are that you just mentioned.
Yeah, production companies. Yeah. But again, I think for me, the lesson there is send the email to the person with the spurious connection. Yeah. That's the thing for me that like we've always done. And certainly in the early days, we did it like relentlessly of just like, if there's any reason to like reach out to people, just do it, because people always want to help. Yeah. They always want to tell their story. They always want to like meet like-minded people who do similar stuff. So like me emailing that boss person who did not know me, I did not know her, and just saying, hey, you're off to start a bakery. I'm starting another bread product-based business. We should definitely go for a coffee. That's the energy. That's kind of like the sort of create your own luck vibe, I guess. And it's just, if you shoot enough things, throw enough shit at the wall, something will stick, right? Yeah. And so...
Have you had any other examples in your life or the business's life where like a cold email has been like, whoa, we didn't expect that to...
So many of those. I'm not going to be able to think of any. I will do eventually. But like so many examples as well where like we'd go and do an event and you'd get there and my brother would look at me like, what the hell are we doing here? It's raining on a Tuesday and we're making pizza in a car parking space in Hammersmith or something. This is depressing. and you'd do it and you'd be like, yeah, this is depressing, whatever, you'd do it. And then, you'd be chatting to people there, someone would give you a card. And then a year later, you've emailed that person back, be like, great to meet you, like, come and have a pizza sometime. And then a year later, it's like, oh, I'm actually like, so-and-so's best mate. And I'm, or I know, a landlord who's got a site and he thinks you'd be great, or just these weird connections that just come from like building those actual connections, chatting to people and then following up, basically.
Yeah.
And it's happened to us over and over again. And I think that's the other thing I never understand about sort of business as you see it on the telly. It's just this whole like sort of aggressive, I'll step on your throat to get to the next level.
Yeah.
It's just like, but that person whose throat you stepped on is like an opportunity that you've squashed that will never, ever come back to be an opportunity. Mm. And I think we have genuinely, I know it sounds like a cliche, but we've genuinely tried to like never be those guys. Yeah. And like, it's amazing to me how many times people that you never thought you'd see again or would never have any relevance to your business or your personal life or whatever just reappear in your life.
Yeah.
I had one, I mean, it's not hugely business relevant, but like the manager of Swingers, Swingers, the crazy golf club. Yeah. We were in their first ever pop-up doing pizza, and the manager of the place was a guy who, we kind of got on pretty well with, and it was all a bit chaotic, but we kind of worked with him and it was mad. And 2 days ago, like he turned up on my front step in where I live down near Brighton because he was seeing if anyone needs a gardener. It's like he's there, just like randomly there.
Nice.
And you're like, oh, amazing. This is so good. What a great connection. And I love those. I'd hate to think that he turns up and you open the door and he's like, oh, it's you, that horrible, horrible person that did that horrible, horrible thing to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this, I often think about this idea of serendipity, and a lot of, like, if I think of all of the different sort of step changes we've seen in our business, basically all of them have been a result of a single conversation with like a random person that, like, if I hadn't just sent them a DM on Twitter that day, or if they didn't happen to have already known, there was a case where I took these two guys' online course on like writing and like note taking and stuff, and they happened to have seen my YouTube channel, and so I was engaging in the Zoom chat on the during lockdown, and they were like, "Oh, Ali Abdaal, I recognize that name," and then I DM'd them on the Zoom there to be like, "Hey, let's hop on a call afterwards." Hopped on a call afterwards, and that one call changed our first product from being like a, I don't know, $100,000 product to like a $3 million product, just instantly in like 10 minutes on a Zoom call.
Yeah.
And my mind was just blown. It's like, what the hell? It's like a random serendipitous thing of like, this leads to this, leads to this, leads to this.
Yeah.
Mental.
And particularly in restaurants where like, you have so many people coming through, and like just making sure you're like taking the time to like just grab people and chat to them, whether that's a team member or a customer or whatever. It's just like, always exciting stuff comes from it, always.
Mm. Yeah. The other thing that I find surprising is that within business, the world seems very small. Yeah. Like everyone kind of knows everyone else in a weird way. Yeah. And you would think that there's all these businesses out there, but actually it's a fairly small network in the grand scheme of things.
It totally is. And I think I'd say that's one absolutely amazing thing about hospitality as an industry. Like, and I don't have a huge number of other industries other than advertising where I worked, but like everyone in hospitality wants to help everyone else. Like I can call up so many people now and be like, hey, your restaurant here, how does it do? Or, you've worked with this landlord, what do you think? And we just chat about everything. It's like sort of like, mother's meeting type thing. It's great. And like, I don't think other industries do that. I think if you work in retail, you don't, I don't think Currys are speaking to M&S to find out what's going on and whether this site's working for them. And it's just not happening. Whereas 100% happens in hospitality.
So don't them like, isn't there a sense of like competition, like footfall competition and stuff like that?
Not really, because I think the general consensus is the more restaurants there are in a place, the more footfall there'll be. I think it's a kind of the chicken and egg, like the restaurants are first and then the people come. So, I've never or very, very rarely encountered, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head, someone who's like cagey on this stuff. Like everyone on new sites, new locations, when a new exciting thing happens, like Battersea Power Station or whatever, like, we all chat about like, is it working for you? What's your deal? That's what happens. And I love that. It's like, and I think it's basically built from like, back to your earlier question, like hospitality is the perfect industry if you love people. If like if you recharge by like chatting to new people and like being in busy situations and just like constantly being like surrounded by people to chat to. Hospitality is that. And so everyone who starts a successful hospitality business is built that way. And therefore they all want to chat to their direct competitors and get a point of view from them. And yeah.
Nice. Okay, so you're in Italy. You're going to buy a van in Italy. How did you get the money for the van?
Barclay card.
Oh, really?
We put the whole thing on a Barclay card.
How much was it?
It was just over 10K.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can buy a pizza van for 10K.
Well, at the time, the van itself, I think, was 6,900 euros.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, the van is... So the big discovery when we landed in Italy. So we bought the van in Reggio di Calabria, which is like the tip of the toe, just opposite the water on Sicily. And we picked it up, turned the ignition, pulled out the sort of showroom, and realized that this thing had a top speed of like 20 miles an hour. Like, and we genuinely didn't know that until we pulled out. It was like, this is the most ridiculous vehicle. We have footage of us being overtaken up a hill by a jogger. That is how slow the vehicle is. Nice. And so, yeah, that kind of very quickly reframed the trip, because it was like, okay, so that drive that we thought we could do in an hour and a half, not going to happen. The way to work out the speed of an ape is to take the average on Google of the car time and the walk time.
Nice.
That's
the speed of
the midpoint is the speed of your actual vehicle.
Okay, so you pay 10K, you get this van, you trundle it up back to the UK.
Trundle it back to the UK via loads of pizza stops. We went and made mozzarella. We learned about tomatoes. But I mean, the big moment is when we went to Naples. So again, we didn't really know that Neapolitan pizza was kind of the big one, and that's where it all started. But we went to Naples. We had a pizza in Damichele, and we were just like, how have I lived for 27, 28 years and not had this before?
Yeah.
And it didn't really exist in London at that time. There was Francomanca just starting out, and it was just phenomenal. And it had one in Brixton and one in Chiswick, I think, at that time. And there was another pizzeria called Lanska Pizzeria, and there was one in Clapham called Donna Margherita. And that was kind of it for Neapolitan pizza at that time. So we just hadn't tried it, and we just fell in love with it, and we were like, this is what we want to recreate.
What's special about Neapolitan pizza?
So it has this kind of like, I guess it's particularly in the UK, the sort of famous pizza words are like thin and crispy. That's what people want. Okay, but Neapolitan is very much like, it's kind of doughy and bready and like floppy.
Oh, and is that like the style of your pizza?
Yeah.
Like you almost want to fold it.
You fold it, and it's got no like structure and integrity.
It's not like Pizza Hut type pizza, which is like very...
Yeah, you could pick up a triangle and it would be
it would stay as a triangle. This is like it would just go like that sort of thing.
So it's kind of, it's a very different thing, and everyone always jokes about people who eat pizza with a knife and fork in the UK, but actually go to Naples, loads of people eat pizza with a knife and fork because it's the way to do it. So we discovered Neapolitan pizza, that style, and it is a very specific style. Happens to be the like birthplace of pizza as well. And we sort of never looked back really.
Okay, so you come back to the UK, and then you've got one van. Yeah. So how does the business start?
The business plan was we would plan, quote unquote, was we would do events. So we'd go and do like weddings, funerals, bar mitzvahs, whatever event you've got, we'll turn up and make pizza for an agreed price. We quickly realized that it's really hard to build a name for yourself that way, because you kind of need a place that people can go and try it. If you're going to get people excited about a product, they've got to be able to go and try it off their own steam. So that was a no-no. And second, it's just so incredibly stressful, like being responsible for like the most important day in your life. If you're going to cater someone's wedding, the stress factor of like getting that wrong or whatever is just too high to deal with. Yeah. So we very quickly moved away from that, and we're like, no, we want a market stall. We want a place where you can come and actually buy it. So we started emailing all the councils to say like, do you have a pitch? There was probably about 7 or 8 like really great food markets in London. Emailed all of them, constantly just heard back saying, no, we have no space. There's a waiting list as long as your arm. It just, most of them were like, just don't even bother joining the list because, it's going to be decades.
Oh, wow.
And then, so then we were like, well, this just can't be right because we're going to these markets and they're not full. So we basically started going down to the markets, taking pictures of us standing in empty spaces and emailing the council and being like, we stood in this space from 11 a.m. until 4 p.m. for 5 days in a row. No one came. Yeah. How can you possibly tell me your market's full? Oh. And I think we basically just like hammered them so much until they just eventually were like, it would be easier to just give them the pitch than it would to. So eventually the first council to give up was Westminster. They gave us a pitch on Berwick Street Market. We paid £10 a day for our little. Yeah, it was amazing.
Oh, that's reasonable.
Little parking spot on the market, and we could trade there from 11 till. Well, we could trade there from 9. Obviously, no one wants pizza at 9 until I think you could trade till 5. Okay. So we basically went and did lunch service every day.
It's only £10 a day.
£10 a day.
Is that normal, or is that surprisingly cheap?
It's still the same, and it's kind of like that classic, like it's kind of it was agreed decades and decades ago,
Right.
and they can't change it. And there are people there who trade there every day, whose grandparents traded there
Wow.
at the same rate. I mean, to be clear, the £10 a day gives you a lovely pitch, but like zero infrastructure. So when we were there, you had no electricity, nowhere to store anything. So you had to literally drive a van into Soho, unload, set up the van, and then drive it away again, find someone to park that van, come back, set up the stall.
Yep.
So it was not, it was not rosy. We basically set about the first month was like, how do we make this easier?
Yep.
Because driving a van in every day, especially to Soho, is just a living nightmare. So we made friends with the landlord of the pub, which is called the Endurance on Berwick Street. Convinced him to let us rent his basement, £50 a week, which we did. So we made the dough, started making the dough in that basement. Then we started to slowly but surely convince the guys, the fruit and veg guys, which is at the time, the market was mostly fruit and veg guys. Yeah. We convinced them that we were like not bad people.
Yeah.
I think they were just very suspicious of us turning up, trying to, I mean, they called us the apprentice for a long time because we were like running around like headless chickens trying to like do anything. We convinced them that we were like a force for good. They then rented us their fridge space in the lockup that they had there. Then I convinced my old advertising agency to let us park the van underneath their agency in a car parking space, which is now the Soho Hotel. And slowly, over the first sort of 6 months, we built this like infrastructure around the business.
There's a lot of convincing.
A lot of convincing.
It's unusual because I'm so used to online businesses and stuff where you literally don't have to speak to anyone.
Yeah.
This is very like, you're out there chatting to the pub guy, chatting to the fruit and veg people, constant. Chatting to the,
And I think, again, love it. That's absolutely me and my brother's thing. But it is also, it comes with, all of the kind of human, failings and just sort of, what's the word? Inaccuracies, I guess, of like, suddenly the pub landlord on one day is like, actually, I've changed my mind. You're out. You've got to be out by 4 p.m. I've loaded all your stuff onto the street and you've got to go and like reconvince him that it's actually okay. And so, there's that stuff. There's, just that it's never fixed. It's never like, and I think that's the one thing about hospitality, but particularly street food. The number one asset you can have is resilience.
Yeah.
Just like those little things that change at the last minute, just being able to deal with it.
If we take a random day in those first 6 months, compare it to a day in your life as like working in corporate, what's the contrast?
The main contrast for me are just were two. Like one, you have no real context of the kind of financial, particularly in advertising, because it's all, and I was junior anyway, but like you have no feeling that you're really earning a wage. You're just kind of doing something, and at the end you get this pay packet that just sort of land, on the last Friday of the month, a pay packet arrives. But you don't really link the two, I found. It's just like you're doing loads of stuff and it's all happening, and then pay packet arrives, but then the next day you're just doing the stuff again. Whereas when you're running your own thing, you're really kind of like constantly doing the sums of your head of like, well, if we did that and that's a day in the month, is that going to, deliver enough to get us to that next line, that next finish line? So that constant like weighing up of like what you're putting your time into and your energy into, and is it going to pay? Which you just don't, I think, do in a corporate life. I mean, I didn't anyway. But the second one, and probably the bigger one, is just that, if you work in a big corporate office, there's someone to call to fix anything that's not your exact responsibility. So it's like, this thing is broken, that thing's gone wrong, I need a point of view on that. You send the email out and you wait for that response to come back, and then you kind of funnel it into the next part of the thing. You've constantly got the support network around you. Start your own business, you have no support network whatsoever. Everything is you. If something's broken, you've got to fix it with a spanner. It's you. If you've lost, you put your cash down, someone's robbed it, that's your problem. If you've made the dough incorrectly, that's your problem. The van's broken down, it's your problem. If it rains, it's your problem. Everything's your problem. Which I don't know. Like, I guess some people get a kick out of that because they're like, cool, well, I'm ready to solve those problems. Bring it on. And I feel like I'm a capable person, and that's exciting. And I guess, that kind of like changes as good as a rest type feeling of like never a dull day because you just don't know what's going to happen. Whereas other people obviously are like, no, this is my skill set. Why in God's name would I try and fix a van or make dough if my skill set is only in selling or mending computers or the law? And I think, that undoubtedly that makes sense, right? Logically, if you're really good at the law, your time is not well spent fixing vans and making dough. You're never going to be. Financially, your best possible bet is to apply yourself to the law and make that work for you. But I guess no one logically starts a business. I don't know. Maybe they do. I think that's probably a bit too much of a sweeping statement. No one logically starts a restaurant business. That's for sure.
What would you say to people who might be thinking, you know what, I want to quit my job to start a business because I want more free time?
Ha! I mean, there is no such thing as free time. Everything is a blur. Like calendars, those little blocks you get in calendars, like 10 till 11, this will happen. It's just nonsense. It's all just grey. Everything's the same. But I guess, another way to look at it is like, that's all free. It's whether you see that as all free time or all work. That's the fundamental dichotomy there of like, if you see having no 10 to 11 a.m. meetings and no places you have to be at certain times as freeing, then start your own business and you'll absolutely love it because it's just constantly like that. Whereas if you see that as like, I cannot, I need to know when I'm doing X and when I'm doing Y, then you're never going to, it doesn't work like that. It's just constantly changing.
Yeah. And to what extent can you clock off at like 5 p.m., 6 p.m. kind of thing when you have a business?
Do you know what? Increasingly, I can now. I could clock off and I could go, do you know what? I'm not going to do that. And I'm trying to be better at it. But unfortunately, I think it's just, it always is there. You'll be sitting there clocked off watching something on telly and somebody comes like, oh, that's cool. I wonder if we could try that in the pizzeria. Or like, oh, you see an advert for something. You're like, oh, it's interesting that they've said it that way. I wonder how that affects us. Or, you do just never, ever, ever switch off, especially when you've got a phone next to you and you can immediately Google it and then you're off down the rabbit hole again.
Yep.
And my wife, rightly, is just livid about that. She's like, you can't do it. Like, you've got to stop. Like, if you don't stop. And I find if I lie in bed at night and I'm not listening to a podcast or something, my brain just racing and like, oh, well, what about if we did that? And, and I think it's a blessing and a curse. It's nice to have a sort of thing that drives you forward in many ways and like gives you ways to like approach stuff. And it's nice to have a point of view on things that, how could I make that work for me? But yeah, it must also be lovely. And I definitely do dream about this to be like, I tell you when I most dream about it is exactly about now when you clock out of the office, Friday, bank holiday.
Yeah. And
you walk out at 4 because it's Friday and everyone's like, whatever, just go home. You go home, you're like, I literally have nothing to worry about now until Tuesday. That never happens. That never, ever, ever happens to me. Because restaurants, particularly, again, they never stop. I go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. The guys are still out there. Guys and girls are still out there doing incredible things with Pizza Pilgrims. Sunday afternoon watching the football. Yep, Pizza Pilgrims is still open.
Yeah.
And so like, it is a weird feeling that like, it's a never, and the worst thing you can do to a restaurant quite genuinely is stop. Like the momentum, we close basically twice a year for like a full team party and we close all the restaurants. Guarantee the next day is when you have the most like mechanical issues, the most like delivery problems, because if the flywheel stops, you've got, it really takes a lot to get it going again. And I guess, if you plot my particular curve involved in that, at the beginning it was just us and we were very much hands-on with every single thing. So you never had these like rug pull moments because you were just there. I mean, they happened, but they kind of happened live and you were just dealing with it. Then you had the bit where, we weren't necessarily in the restaurants at 9 o'clock at night, but you'd be there trying to switch off and you'd get the call being like, this is blown up or that thing's gone wrong or someone's just come in and tried to mug us and that was my worst time because then I would just be like, right, you're trying to calm and suddenly you've got to like drop everything and rush off and fix some like much bigger problem. And I guess, we're lucky now in that like we have grown, we have got like, really amazing teams and we've got a fantastic managing director and he's got ops director below him and then, head of operations, ops managers. Each store has a manager and assistant manager. Like it has to be pretty nuclear for it to get to me now.
Yeah.
But that said, I always want to know it, always read the reports. If something does go wrong, it's like, how can we be better next time? How can we stop it happening? But that middle bit where you don't have the management, but you do have the kind of freedom, I actually found the worst.
Yeah, the feeling of like having Having your own business. So like my girlfriend has recently quit her day job to go full time on her business, and she's like, it gets to 11 p.m. and she's like, oh, but I've just had a moment of inspiration where I feel so excited about this thing. And like back in the day when she had the day job, she was always being like, hey, Ellie, why are you working at 11 p.m.? Come on, like, like work-life balance and all this kind of stuff. And now she gets it. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And back in the day, we used to be like, when we're on holiday, like, why are you working all the time? And now she's like, man, I don't have time to work during normal times. They're like, oh, we can do so much work on holiday. And I'm like, yes.
There you go, you see.
It's just the whole like psychology changes, I guess, when it's your thing.
100%.
Now there's a really powerful reason to work on it.
Massively. And I think the obvious, again, very obvious cliche, but the obvious connection there is kids. You see people with kids, you're like, oh, I would never do it that way, or like, I could handle that, whatever. And then when you have kids of your own, you're like, oh, right, okay, this is it. This is what it's all about. And it does just never stop.
We have a question here from Asma from our Telegram community. Would you recommend working full-time or part-time as you start your business so that you have a stable income already? Or would you recommend that one invests all of their time into their startup?
I personally found it beneficial to test it more and like, not throw everything out and go like, I'm out, done. So we did quit. We did go and do this trip. We did build the business. But in the very, very early days, it was like, look, this is crazy. We're not going to be able to both do this. So I came back. I quit my job in advertising Adidas and got a job advertising Stannah stairlifts and started doing that like in parallel. And I guess we when we started out did a lot of testing of like, right, here's, we want to start a pizza business. Let's get 50 mates around for dinner party and do pizza and see how that goes. And if that's good and we enjoy it and we then you can kind of go, right, what's the next thing? The next thing in our case was, let's go to my old advertising agency and park up outside and do pizza for lunch for them and see how they get on. Yeah. And then the next thing is like, let's go and do a one night event and like, pay £100 and I think that is the way to do it. Obviously it depends what your business is, but like you've got to my mind, like doing some basic testing, even if it's like, I'm going to take a week holiday and go and just do this for a week.
Yeah.
Is a great way to do it. You don't need to throw the baby out of the bathwater. Yeah,
that's very much my view of it as well. I think there are some businesses where you don't have that option, but like broadly, I think actually having a job and doing the business on the side forces you to prioritize.
Yeah.
Because I found that 2 years after I did the doctor stuff and suddenly I had spare time, my output reduced in terms of number of videos we were making because I was spending all my time doing the bullshit that I just didn't have time to do back in the day. And I was like, well, I can now reply to all these emails and like hop on calls with all these people who want to hop on calls in the end. And it's like, before I know it, my entire calendar is booked up with like
unproductive stuff.
I discovered Calendly and I'm like, oh my God, I can just give a link out. And it's like, bloody hell, I'm on Zoom calls all day. Oh shit. And it took about a year to realize that, back when I was doing this as a side hustle, I intuitively prioritized the most important things and ignored everything else.
Yeah.
Now I need to actively prioritize the most important things and ignore everything else, which requires figuring out what's the goal, what are the metrics that matter, what is the needle moving stuff, what's the 80-20, and like desperately trying to ignore all the other opportunities that are coming my way.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly, the classic thing of like, you want something done, ask someone busy type thing. And I think that's exactly right. I think we had that sort of similar inflection point of like, because we started out with like no plan and no, we just knew we had this thing and we needed to like get it out there and grow it. So we started out just doing everything. It was like yes to everything, which is why we ended up in car parking spaces in Hammersmith and all that kind of stuff. But it always led to something, and it was like the right thing to do, I believe, to just like throw yourself into everything and like. But you're right. Very quickly that becomes overwhelming. Very quickly you are doing stuff that's like, do you know what? We could have been better off doing this or that or the other. And I think once you someone talked to me about this analogy of like you're pushing the ball up a hill, and then you go you go onto the downhill bit once you've kind of got to a certain level, and then your job is to like direct the ball rather than like push the ball.
Ooh, yeah, that's nice.
And I think that was an inflection point that I think we kind of wrestled with a bit, because I was still very much like, no, we're still going up the hill. And I think my brother was like, we're over the hill. We need to stop saying yes to this stuff at the edge and just focus on the pizzeria or, making the product better or whatever it is. And so, yeah, I think we still always get our heads turned by like shiny new stuff. It's always like, oh, but wouldn't it be cool to do, go and do Glastonbury? And I think the business now looks at us like, what? Like, why would we do Glastonbury? Like, we know we're not going to make any money. It's going to be super stressful. We haven't got, we have to drag people out of the pizzeria. So we call loads of stress for people who aren't even at Glastonbury because they're all their teammates are in a field with you. And you're not going to get any publicity about it, really. I don't get it. And we're just like, oh, but, it's cool to do Glastonbury. Yeah. And like, I think, and I kind of like that because I think, I think mine and my brother's role, we've always been founders. We've never been CEOs or whatever. But like, I think our role kind of is to like throw in that stuff that's like the grown-ups all go like, that makes literally no sense. Why would we do that? And 90% of the time they're right and we don't do it. But actually sometimes I'm like, no, we really do actually think this will move the dial forward. And like we will. So quite recently we've just done our 10th birthday. And we were like, we need to go and like revisit, reestablish the pilgrimage thing. It's such a big part of our brand. And we need to like reinvigorate our menu. We've got to be staying ahead of everyone else. And we basically came up with this idea of we need another ridiculous vehicle to do it in. So we got a Vespa and we worked with this amazing company to build a sidecar that turned into a pizzeria, like a transformer.
Oh,
and
sick.
So we have the world's first Vespa pizzeria.
Wow.
And then we drove that to Naples and we drove it around Naples for 10 days, making 10 films about new menu items. And like, we had this incredible full circle moment where we'd first ever tasted pizza in Damichele, super revered tempera of pizza in Naples. They allowed us to come into Damichele and do a pop-up in their restaurant, take it over for a whole night, put Pizza Pilgrims out the door.
Wow.
And it was like, that's 10 years of us like knowing those guys and working with the Naples community and like building relationships. And it's amazing. Nice. It's an amazing thing to have done. But like, I guess when we first proposed this idea, everyone was like, this is nonsense. Like we definitely shouldn't do this. And actually it's been a great way to reestablish the business. The amount of sort of coverage we've got from it has been great.
Nice. Okay, so you're in this market for the £10 a day. You got the pizza.
Yeah.
What's like the daily profit and loss of the business when you're a pizza food van in a market? So
we sold pizza for £5.
Yeah.
So £5 a pizza. There was quite a bit smaller probably than the ones we make now, but £5 for a margarita, and a great day would be £500. Didn't take cards.
Oh. Okay.
So didn't take cards. So £500 in cash.
So 100 pizzas.
100 pizzas. That would be a good day. I think our record day ever was like 120 pieces.
Okay.
On that market stall.
Yeah.
Then you'd go and do something like British Summertime.
Yeah.
And you could happily do 800 pizzas in a day.
Ah. Okay.
And suddenly, and you're probably charging a little bit more because it's a festival. So that's when you're starting to make like real money.
Yeah.
But, again, like it's so scary. It's such a weird thing. We're like, no cards. So you're literally at the end of the day, you're there with a box of cash.
Why didn't you take cards?
Because it was 2012. There was no way to take cards on a market.
Stripe POS wasn't a thing.
Didn't exist.
iZettle and all that.
Just like iZettle,
just about
maybe
coming around then. Yeah.
But no, I mean, it didn't exist in 2012.
Yeah.
Did not exist.
In 2014, I started using that for some stuff.
Yeah.
But like, 2012 was like old school.
It's proper old school. So
you had
like
to get like a WorldPay enterprise account or some shit like that to accept cards.
Genuinely, one of our biggest challenges every day was how much change we had.
Really?
Like, did we have enough, like, literally coins? And I still fucking hate change to this day. I never have cash. Because I just remember the trauma of dealing with cash. And then I remember in 2013 so vividly, because we'd started the business on a Barclaycard, I emailed Barclaycard and said, hey, we're opening a pizzeria next month. I fucking hate cash. Can we just make it completely cashless? Can we be the UK's first cashless restaurant?
Yeah.
And this was in 2013, and we had a meeting in their big, tall tower I think it was in Canary Wharf or something like that. And they were up for it. And then we got overruled by all of our investors. They were like, this is nonsense.
What?
Like, yeah.
Why?
They were like, you can't run a restaurant and turn people away if they only have cash. And I was like, we absolutely can. And they were like, no, you can't do that. It's too risky. Got overruled. And I didn't win that argument. I think I basically had that argument once a year, every year, for 7 or 8 years. And only the first time I won it was COVID.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's like, cash makes no sense. It's like, you have to ensure, you have people walking out of your restaurants after, a busy weekend. You get a young guy or girl walking to the bank with like thousands of pounds strapped to their back through Soho. I'm like, it's just not safe for that person straight off. You have to pay more for the insurance.
Yeah.
It's slower. It's a faff. You've got to have change.
Yeah.
It's got to be stored on site. The whole thing is just a nightmare. It's like cards are just like dreamy. So yeah, all of our pizzerias now are cashless.
Nice.
Finally.
Thank goodness. So first 6 months, you're in the market stall.
Yeah.
So that's 2013, 2012?
March 2012 was we sold our first pizza.
Nice. And then how does the business grow over the next like few years? Like what were the big?
So we started at that market stall. £500 was a good day. And you know, we basically do the market stall for lunch at least 4 days. Mostly, we do it at least 4 days a week.
So £500 is a good day. Of which, how much is profit? Like, well, what are the margins on a business like that?
I think, like, quite honestly, we were investing all of our profit in like things, in like doing other stuff.
Okay.
So obviously, you go and do a festival.
Yeah.
They take a pitch fee.
So you guys aren't making any money?
No,
personally.
I think we took £100 each a week.
Wow. Okay. Nice.
That was the money we were
So
making.
how did you sustain yourselves during that period?
I was very lucky that my wife had a job. I mean, she worked also for an advertising agency.
Okay.
It certainly wasn't like an amazing, high salary or anything, but that was a huge help. She wasn't my wife at the time. She was my girlfriend, then my fiance. So I was, we were boyfriend and girlfriend. I had a stable job. Then we got engaged. And then about a week later, I was like, I think I'm going to quit my job and start a stupid pizza thing.
How did her family feel about this?
I think they were confused. Again, more eyebrow raises, more like, you sure this is the right thing?
Yeah.
I think just on that point, and I'd like to make this point, I feel so strongly that it is the right thing. I think, if you have that thing in you, whatever that is, to want to start a business, the longer you wait thinking that you're gaining invaluable experience, the more your life is like crystallizing into a thing. And you have a mortgage and you have, kids maybe, and you have all these things that actually do make the risk you're taking a bigger risk. And I just think, that this idea of like, I just think you've got to go for it early. Like if you're going to do it as early as you possibly can. That's not to say you can't do it later. And obviously if you've got a great job and you've built up a big nest egg, and that's a whole different conversation. But I don't know. It annoys me that we don't encourage people straight after their A levels, definitely straight after university, to go and have a crack at something. I know, you've got to have the money, but we didn't. We put it on a credit card. Yeah. Like, I think having a crack then is the best way, because I just don't think. I think the more you kind of learn what you think is the right way to do something, the more when the road's not that, and you have to deviate. Yeah. You don't deviate. You just go, no, but I really believe that this is the way to do it. Yes, I know that some people then create Facebook, and that's fine. I get that. But most people don't. Most people have their set worldview. They set out into the market. The market tells them you're kind of 60% of the way there, but it's actually here. And there's, the more, if you've done it for 10 years and you're super set in your ways, I think you're harder to deviate.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, in case you have not yet heard, my book is about to come out. It's called Feel Good Productivity, How to Do More of What Matters to You. And it's a book that I've been working on for the last 3 years. Now, it's being published at the end of December 2023, but pre-orders are actually available. And I know people don't like pre-ordering the book, but if you do pre-order the book and you email me your receipt, you will get completely free access to a live exclusive event that I'm hosting in the first weekend of January of 2024. And this is a live online workshop all about annual planning, goal setting, and reflection. And so I'm going to be facilitating a group with hopefully hundreds of people from all around the world, and we're going to be going through how to figure out what to do with our life, and how to turn that into goals for the year, and how to build systems, and how to be consistent with stuff, and how to make sure that we are enjoying the journey along the way. That is purely exclusively available for people who pre-order the book as a thank you for our little community. So if you want to check it out, you can check out the book. You can maybe consider pre-ordering it. The link will be down in the video description.
One of the things I think I've heard you talk about before is founders' naivety.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
I just think so many things that we have in our business that I love about our business still came to be past because we'd never worked in restaurants before. We'd worked behind the bar in our parents' pub, but we'd never like run in a big, worked in a big restaurant company. And just the way, the way you treat the team, how you kind of, obviously famously restaurants are, hard hours, long hours. We were always like, no one works more than these hours. If you work more than your contracted hours, it's a problem, not a benefit. Yeah. Splitting tips between chefs and front of house. At the time, it was like, no, the front of house take all the tips. Sometimes they give some to the chefs. And I'm like, well, what? So I've gone in, I've had a nice pizza, I leave a tip, and the chefs use none of that. It's like, yeah, that's what happens. And I'm like, that's nonsense. So we changed that and we split it 50-50, and we still do. Yeah. And little things like that. I think, and the more you kind of, have experience in industry, the more you just kind of follow the herd. And I think, and that's to me not the definition of starting your own thing.
We got a question from Patrick from our Deep Diver Telegram community, which is, what are the key things that you wished you knew before opening a food business?
I wish I knew, I guess, quite honestly, more about the financial bit. Like, I knew nothing about a P&L, nothing about, like, I'd never even heard of a P&L, had no kind of concept of like VAT or like, and I think we tried to sort of plot some stuff out, but I did it so fundamentally wrong. And the fact is that, like, running, particularly a restaurant business, understanding the numbers helps you understand the business. And actually looking at the numbers from afar, you can tell a business that's like a happy business or a sad business just by looking at like the productivity, for example. So that their labor percentage, how much money they're taking as a restaurant, how much they're spending on labor. You can tell which ones are teams that are struggling or like not delivering at the right productivity level, or are maybe a new team, or versus the ones that are like absolutely flying, set in their ways. And they're the ones who are happy because they everyone knows what they're doing. Everyone's got their role. They've got the tools to do the job well. Everything's flying. And you can see that. And I think, we just didn't know anything about numbers at all. I'm quite a numbers guy. Like, I did, lots of maths A levels. I did psychology at uni, which was all statistics and stuff. And so, like, kind of really delved into that. But we spent a long time like just learning it and then sheltering everyone from it, because we were like, well, no one wants to know the numbers because it's just the boring bit. Like, the fun bit is running the restaurant and having fun and like creating a party atmosphere. But the managers definitely don't want to see this. So we'll keep that away from them. Let them run the party. And actually, that's so not true. Like, numbers just free everyone up to know like what success looks like. I think you often think as a founder, I guess, that like a blank sheet of paper is everyone's dream of like, why don't you just go and do it your way? And, we'll absolutely be here to support you. But like, here, just go for your life. It's your pizzeria. And actually, 90% of people don't want that. At the very least, they want some lines on the paper and they want, maybe a couple of headers of like, how do you fill this paper out? And I think we started the business thinking that everyone loved the blank bit of paper. And what you've absolutely got to do is make sure there is definitely blank space for people to fill. And obviously everyone's different, but the vast majority want some kind of framework to work in.
That's so true. Like, this is a big realization I've had in the last like 12 months as well, where I thought like everyone in my team wants the same autonomy that I do. And so it's like, great. What that looks like is me not giving them direction, because they can obviously make it up and they prefer it. And then literally everyone on the team is like, no, like, we like autonomy, but we also like having a direction, and we like knowing what success looks like to you, because like fundamentally, if it's not like successful to you, like similarly, like in the last 6 months, various people in the team, we've been saying to the team that, we've got someone in charge of our YouTube channel and the podcast and social media and stuff. And we're saying to them, we want you guys to be the sort of the CEOs of your own departments. And then an immediate question is like, cool, what's the budget? And we're like, that's a good question. I don't know, like unlimited? And I'm like, well, it's not unlimited, because like, if we spent $2 million on this thing, you'd probably have a problem with it. I'm like, yeah. So what's the budget? I'm like, okay, this is actually worth us sitting down and figuring out. And now people have a budget. Now they get it. They're like, okay, I've got 100K to play with to be able to do all this stuff.
But so it's so interesting, because I for years hate budgets, and I went and met my kind of business mentor person, not a mentor, but like someone who I look up to, is John Timson. You've heard of John Timson? So he used to run, his son now runs it. Timson's like the Timson shoe shops.
Have you come across the Timson test?
No, what's that?
The Timson test is like from the Timson like shops. It's like 10 questions that every manager should be able to answer about their employees.
I've not seen this.
Oh, it's really interesting. So my CEO coach uses the Timson test with like the picture of the little Timson like shoe shop thing. It's like, how many kids do they have? What are the names of the kids? When's their birthday? What's their favorite? Blah, blah, blah.
That is 100% a John Timson thing. And I've not heard it described as the Timson test. But like his whole thing is, he calls it upside down management. So it's like the most important person in your business is the person serving the customer. And they should have as much autonomy as they need to do that job. And to be able to like make the customer happy. So I think every employee in Timson's can spend £500 of company money to write a customer complaint without any kind of approval process.
Nice.
They have no central EPOS. So like every store, the manager knows how many key fobs you need to order that week, how many they sold last week. They have a budget. The reason I got into this is the budget thing. They have a budget in the store of like, this is your sales target for the week, and everything above that they get a third of.
Oh, nice.
So like, this is what you got to do, but if you beat it, you can have a big chunk of it.
Yeah, nice.
But he was talking, I went up to meet him. Weirdly, my grandmother decorated a house for him once in Cheshire. So she was like, oh yeah, I've met John Timpson, sent him an email. Somehow he agreed to let us go up, me and my brother, for a day and chat to him.
Yeah. Wow.
Just like such an inspirational guy. But he was like, I hate budgets. They're nonsense. You write down a number on the 1st of January and you're telling me that like the 31st of December that you'd have been right. And that he's like, I literally do a budget because I have to, because the bank make me, but I make no one stick to it.
Oh.
Like, I want to know, I want people to just sort of feel it, I guess. And like, I don't want anyone to be like punished for a number that I wrote down on the 1st of January, but also don't want to hold anyone back, because I feel like if you hit that finish line and you're done, that changes your energy a bit. Whether he's right or wrong on the whole no budget thing. But I guess in your example, people do want to know what the number is. And I would say the best work that we've ever done, like creatively or, that's moved the business forward, was always done on a shoestring rather than like with a massive pile of money behind it.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't, if the budget's 100 grand and some like absolute game changer of an opportunity comes along and it's 200 grand.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to be like, oh, well, this isn't going to, we'll ignore that because it's never going to work. You want them to be like,
this was my resistance to budgets, because I was like, guys, like think more about like P&L. Like if you know, for example, we get X amount of sponsorship dollars per YouTube video. We know that that's like what we get per YouTube video, and therefore like almost anything to make YouTube videos better, we can justify because of the absurd amount of, but then, it's like, I think it's useful for the team to know it's like, hey, it's 100K rather than $1 million, for example. Yeah. But also that 100K is like actually fairly malleable.
I think that's the important thing, is knowing that it's malleable. And we've, as we've grown, we've had to put in more budgets, particularly for different departments. Yeah. And I'm always like, it's a guide. It's a guide. It's not like the target. It's not, if you spend more than it, it's a problem. If you spend less than it, you're going to get a pat on the back. It's just a guide. But you want people to go like, oh, but this is outside the budget, but it'd be amazing, and take that kind of attitude.
So Pizza Pilgrims now has been going on for 10 years.
10 years.
What are the stats of the business these days, if you don't mind sharing, like revenue margins, that sort of thing?
So we're 24 pizzerias. Which is more than I could have imagined when we had our little market stall. 24 pizzerias. We employ just over 500 people.
500?
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Which is madness, like absolute madness. We had our staff party last week, actually, our summer party. And that's when you realize it the most, when you see.
How much does it cost to do a party for 500 people?
It costs a lot of money. Do you know what? It costs less because of the industry we're in. Like a lot of we did it actually with our good friends at Camden Brewery.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And they paid for all the beer. Yeah. So that's a big chunk of it. Yeah. But no, it's great. Like, it's good to do that stuff. What's interesting? Sorry, I keep going off on weird tangents. But like young people are different to us. And I'm not saying you're obviously a young person. I'm very much middle-aged. I'm 40 now. And like, they don't, whereas kind of slightly going out and having a lot of drinks, and that was kind of like that was the definition of a good time. And like kind of like getting a bit mashed up. That's not what everyone wants right now. It's like, there's a whole thing around like, do young people really want a party? Or would they prefer to just have a day off? And I don't know, one half of me makes that quite sad. We've got to work really hard. In our industry, we are about, showing people a good time and going out and that kind of thing. And so I think people who work in that industry do want to party, and they do want to kind of engage with their peers. And it's great seeing because people move around different pizzerias and like seeing those connections re-established and stuff. I love it. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is the danger is that because I love it, does that mean that they love it? And you've got to be constantly aware of like, is that actually the best thing, with that chunk of money, whatever it is that the best thing you can do for your team? Or actually would they prefer to do something more wholesome? Or would they prefer to literally just have a day off? Yeah. Or what is it? And so you've got to kind of constantly work on that stuff. But 500 people, they're incredible to see them all in one place. We've just finished our year-end, end of June, I think turnover of 27 million net of VAT, and with an EBITDA of about 2.4.
So like, okay, interesting. So 27 million top like revenue basically.
Yeah.
After you paid VAT.
Yeah.
And then EBITDA is like your operating profit, kind of.
Yeah, operating profit, exactly.
Of 2.4 million.
Yeah.
That's 10%-ish. Is that normal?
10%-ish is kind of a sort of target for restaurants, but it depends what you're doing, right? We always, a number of things.
Yeah.
We've always reinvested all of our profit back in. We've never really taken it. We've never ever taken a dividend or anything like that. So, we're very much like putting it back in to grow.
Yeah.
And I think we've always really wanted to grow at the right rate.
Yep.
The endless debate we have with our board is about the head office percentage cost.
Wait,
so you have a pizzeria.
Yep.
If you've got 24 pizzerias, take one unit. A standard pizzeria might take, let's say they might take 30 to 40K a week.
They might take as in
that would be your revenue.
Okay, sure.
So that's what, like 1.5 to 2 million revenue.
Yeah.
And you would hope that you would convert that 20%. Some of ours convert higher than that. Some convert lower.
Into EBITDA.
Okay. So you've got your 2 million at 20% would be
like
400 EBITDA. And then obviously that all goes into a big pot. And then you have your central overhead, which is your head office that obviously is not, none of them are revenue generating essentially. So they're people who are like supporting, making sure that those businesses work really well. So that'd be marketing or finance,
HR, legal.
HR operations also sits in there. So our operations team would have, our managing partners, as they're called, would have 5 pizzerias that they're responsible for.
Okay.
Their cost would sit in head office rather than in that pizzeria.
Okay.
Anyway, so the big debate is what percentage of your revenue you're spending on your head office. So if it was 10%, if your revenue is 27 million, you'd be spending 2.7 million on your head office.
Sure.
And from my point of view, I'm like, I want to grow right. I want to grow great. I want to make sure we're a business with meat on the bones, that we're making the right decisions. We've just applied for a B Corp. We're on our 2030 journey, net zero journey, all that. I want to make sure that the teams are supported, that we have the right training in place, that we're doing all that stuff. And that costs a lot of money, all of that stuff. And therefore, your EBITDA percentage is reduced.
Yeah.
Whereas you could absolutely run that business on a much, much smaller overhead.
Yep.
And you could make a lot more money on an annual basis. But I would suggest that, your business will be at the best maintaining and at worst probably degrading.
Yeah.
And so it's how do you, we've always been like, it's a long game. We were literally, I remember when we were carrying gas bottles above our head on the market, we'd be like, it's a long game.
Yeah. Everything's
about like, how do we shoot forward rather than like do best now? So it's kind of like, so the point I'm making is that obviously we're blown away by where the business has got to, but it's all about reinvesting into the future and also making sure that we're doing it the right way and we're not like breaking people or pushing people too hard or making it not enjoyable, because at that point it's like, what's the point?
Yeah, like you start a business because you want you want something that's better than the corporate job.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and I
if
just
you're not
think
having fun along the way, then
if you're not enjoying it, like what is the actual point?
Yeah.
And so we've always tried to do that right, and we've definitely made a lot of mistakes. But broadly, I think I don't think we've kind of done wrong by anyone along the way, or tried to kind of exploit anyone, or do anything. We've tried to do it what I would call the right way. Whether we always have, I'll let other people decide, I guess.
And so I'm curious about this bottom line. Actually, so top line and bottom line numbers. What's the growth graph looked like over time? Has it been like exponential, or has it been like linear, or like has it been upsy downy?
Well, it's got a sort of COVID shaped hole in it, which doesn't really help. But do you know what? It's been very slow, and I think it's been exponential, but not. I don't know. It's not kind of curving away to infinity.
Sure,
it's sort of like it's sort of exponential, and then it's sort of plateaued at a sort of, I don't know what you'd call that.
Yeah, whatever.
Exponential to plateau. I don't know. So it's definitely sped up, but we've never kind of like carried on the speeding up.
Sure.
But I think what always surprises me about people who start a successful business, particularly a restaurant business, where like every site is so different and so like completely unique in its location and challenges and stuff. People open one really successful site and they're like, this is going really well, really enjoying this, like really good. I'm on the ground a lot, blah, blah, blah. And then their next step is like, cool, I'm going to go and do 4 more next year. And I'm like, what? Like, Even weirder than that are the ones when people open one and it's not going well, and they're like, my solution to that is open another one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I literally do not understand.
Yeah.
Like, we were always like, get one. I guess our problem was that we wanted to make it perfect. So like, we were like, just get this one absolutely singing. We were never ready to do the next thing. And we had to be pushed to be like, guys, you're on marginal gains now. You need to move on to the next one. So we did one in August 2013. We didn't want to do another one at all. And we got approached with this kind of insane offer that we wanted to turn down, which is to open in Carnaby Street in Kingley Court. And we were like, just don't think of right time. Anyway, we basically got pushed into it. Pretty much the only time I think our investors were like, you should definitely not miss this opportunity. So we did do that. That was the second one. But we didn't do another one after that for 18 months. So you're already at, almost 3 years to do 3.
Yeah.
And then I think it was another year to do the 4th. So like, it took us 5 years to open 5.
Yeah.
And we're now at 24. So, you do the math. So yeah, it's definitely sped up, but it takes a lot of time to figure this stuff out. And I just think, I don't know, I would never be comfortable hitting the ground running. Plus, inevitably, if you want to do 4 in the second year, you're going to lose control of your business immediately, because that 4 restaurants is not going to, it's a chunk of capital.
Yeah.
You've got one that's working well. I guarantee you're going to be a minority shareholder by the time that's done. And that's not a good thing. And I just don't think, again, if you've started a business to actually enjoy it, what's the rush?
Yeah. One thing that I love the whole long-term thinking. I guess in my business, one thing that I struggle with, and I'd love to get your take on this, is because our business is so reliant on the YouTube channel. And it's like, we're on like 4.67 million subscribers now with the YouTube channel, another like 300K with the podcast. And it's like, things are growing, but at the same time, subscribers, there's a lot of churn. Like the people that watched me 5 years ago, and broadly not the same people that are watching me now. Every day new people are discovering the channel, and people are stopping watching the videos because they've gotten what they needed and they've left now.
Yeah.
Like I don't listen to much of Gary Vee's content anymore, even though I loved it back in the day when I was first getting started.
Yeah.
And so there's a natural churn there. And so my worry is always like, are we now at the peak? Are we gonna, is this the year where we're gonna stop growing? Is this the year where we're gonna sort of be on the decline? And so thinking long term feels like, it feels scary, because like got to make sure we're like on 60% margins every single year, because if we're not, then it's like like all the kind of the fear associated with that.
Yeah.
Did you feel that at all in your business, or like?
I think you definitely do. I think our way of growing is so different to you, in that like, it's like, cool, we want to grow, let's go and open a pizzeria in Manchester or Edinburgh or Glasgow or Bristol. Like that's growth. Yeah. And yours is obviously you have access to all of those people already. So it's like a very different it's a very different approach to like
we need more and better and new. Yeah. And try and not like default to new, because actually more and better is like
But I guess the most important thing is understand like why people watch you, right? And then trying to do more of that.
More of that and better.
And more of that and better. Yeah. But I'm reading, just to but yes, absolutely, you constantly feel like I genuinely believe that Pizza Pilgrims has kind of got survived, because I literally feel like every single day it could fail tomorrow. Like that's my kind of general sitting like anxiety level of like, but if we didn't do that thing that we probably don't need to do and is going to be a lot of effort, but if we don't do it, we might
fail tomorrow.
Might be over. It might be over. And I think I'm reading at the moment Paul McCartney biography.
Oh, interesting. Is it good?
Who is really I only read rock biographies. It's like my only thing that I read. Nice. Unfortunately, I read no productivity books.
Radiohead T-shirt.
Yeah, there you go. You see.
Nice.
So I only read rock biographies. But he went to. I'm going to forget the name of the bloody philosopher now. But he basically, at the peak of Paul McCartney, at the peak of the Beatles' fame, he constantly felt like it was going to be a flash in the pan. Beatles would be forgotten, and his one thing he'd be left with was being a songwriter. Yeah. So he was constantly the Beatles' kind of progression of their like studio stuff, and like the songwriting becoming more and more complex in nature, and was built around him going, I'm going to have to write songs for artists that I don't necessarily chime with, so I need to constantly be like doing new stuff in the studio to be pushing ourselves, so that when this all disappears and everyone's forgotten about the Beatles, I know like loads of different genres of songwriting, so I can go and like have a solid career. Nice. That was his driving thought.
That's cool.
Which is
helpful. Yeah, in some ways.
Exactly.
Anxiety inducing in others.
No, exactly. And I think it's probably not the healthy. But he went to see this really, really famous. Oh God, it's going to annoy me. Basically, it's like the most famous philosopher of his time.
Alan Watts?
No, but begins with a B.
Bertrand Russell.
Bertrand Russell.
Yes.
That's exactly what it was.
He's written a good essay in praise of idleness,
Right.
which I often read as like a solid, which is all about. It was written in like the 1920s, where he's like, yeah, everyone's going to stop working because like something, and people are going to realize that they can just chill. And I'm like,
okay.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Bertrand Russell. And so anyway, he went to see Paul McCartney. Was like, basically, I've got this thing. It's kind of, as you may have noticed, it's kind of got quite big. This is probably like 1966 or something.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think I should do? Bertrand Russell was 90 at the time. Like, what should I do about it? I'm worried about this. I'm worried about that. Like, and basically Bertrand Russell was like, you should literally enjoy it every single day. Make the most of enjoying it because it's insanely brilliant. And like, don't think about anything else. Just enjoy it to the max. I'm like, that's great advice. Like, I'm not saying we're anywhere near that level, but like, I love the idea that someone literally on top of the world is going, I'm worried this is all going to go wrong. And what do I do with this? And the advice from Bertrand Russell is just have a good time.
That's so good. That is so good. What happened during the pandemic, and how did you guys deal with that?
It was spicy. It was super spicy. Shall I take you through it blow by blow?
Yeah, I would love it. What's the story?
It was pretty punchy. So we had February half term, famously really big for us. It's kind of the first like thawing of winter.
Yeah, this is 2020.
2020, February half term, like, you know, pizza and families is big. So like, it's obviously always a big week for us. Had biggest week the company had ever had in February half term.
And then how many stores did you have at that point?
It's a great question. I reckon about 17.
Wow, okay.
Something like that. So yeah, February 2020. And then our MD, who is a total legend, but is definitely on the kind of like germaphobe scale. He's like, oh, you know, this thing is getting quite big. So like, do you think this is going to be a thing? And I was like, this is so not going to be a thing. Every time it comes around, there's some kind of bird flu. It goes away again. It's nonsense. Obviously, we then had this like weird early warning system where like, a lot of people who work for us are Italian. And we started to get calls up from Italians being like, my mum's told me that I can't come to work.
Wow.
Like, obviously we'd seen it on the news and it was getting big and it was like, okay, so this is getting closer and closer to home. But we were getting like the real like on your doorstep human reaction of like, I'm not happy coming to work. I don't know what this is. I don't know. Anyway, so this was growing and growing. And obviously, you know, we were increasingly like aware of it. I remember I went around on a Sunday. I went to every pizzeria and just sat and chatted to the team. I was like, how do you feel about this? You know, anyone who doesn't want to work doesn't have to work. But obviously, we're not going to be able to pay you if you choose not to work. Totally respect the decision. There'll be a job there for you if you want. But, you know, we've got to keep going. Then we had this like absolute nuclear moment where Boris came out and was like, and this is probably early first week of March.
Yeah.
He basically announced on the news that like people shouldn't go to bars, restaurants or clubs.
Yeah. They
shouldn't do it. But didn't close us down, give us any kind of like, you know, support.
Yep.
So suddenly our revenue, which is already, we were definitely seeing the flag. We were definitely starting to see revenue come down quite aggressively by 7th, 8th of March.
Yep.
Then Boris comes out and was like, don't go to these places. And it went like through the roof, like absolute collapse. And so we were there, still open, still trading, but with no one coming.
Yeah.
And it was like
literally no one.
I mean,
or like little drops.
I think our revenue probably dropped by like 60 to 70% overnight. So like, I mean, we were open and trading, but we knew that every single day we were losing money.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's just no way that's going to work. So, you know, restaurants famously thin margins anyway. So, you know, losing 10, 20% is enough to cause you. Anyway, so that happened. We were like, what the hell do we do now? And basically we had to make a decision, and we decided, well, we did two things. One, we sat down and modeled out what we called the apocalypse scenario.
Ooh, okay.
Which showed 6 weeks of closure, which was like obviously nowhere near what we ended up having. And I remember, we'll never forget, we did it. We did the spreadsheet. It was the four of us senior bods in the room, did the spreadsheet, pressed enter, and it was like, oh, actually 6 weeks of closure, that's all right. We can survive this. Like, this is pretty good. And then our FD was like, oh, forgot to link cell A to cell B. Boom, like business is gone in 6 weeks, like nothing left.
So why is it? Is it because you have to pay the rent for the stores and you've got to pay the staff, or like?
Yeah, so we were modeling it like with everyone still being paid.
Oh,
like,
okay,
you know, no, this is obviously before like we didn't know anything about furlough.
Oh, yeah, that hadn't come around then.
So we had this week of like, right, we know that the business will implode.
Yes.
So what do we do now? We've got all these stores; they're losing money.
That's pretty scary. How
It
did
was
that feel
horrendous.
when you saw the spreadsheet?
It was totally horrendous, and I genuinely did go to the human element of like, well, what are we going to do? We can't fire all these people. Like, what are they going to do? So we basically took the decision that our plan was, obviously, everyone was nervous of it, and it was like, we were getting a lot of like, well, why are you opening? Like, you shouldn't be opening. It's not safe, blah, blah, blah. We were like, no, the best thing we can do for the most people in this business is to trade our asses off as much as we can, keep the pizzerias open as much as we can, push out left, right, and center, tell the world that we're open and trading. And if you want to come and have a pizza, we're here for you. And basically give as many people as many hours to work as we can and hope that this all blows over, basically. And we did that, and we got definitely a lot of pushback. We got a lot of people telling us that we were irresponsible and blah, blah, blah. But we were like, I think this is the best thing we can do for everyone. Anyway, about a week after that, we got the sort of, your pizzerias now need to close. Everything needs to close and needs to shut by the end of today. But in that same, I think that was the day they told us we had to close. And it was like, you need to, by 11 o'clock at night, have closed everything up and gone. And you can do delivery, but nothing else. They also announced furlough.
Yeah.
And we were sat in this meeting. I'll never forget it. All of us on Zoom watching Rishi reading out what furlough is. And there was speculation of like, is it going to be 40% of salary covered? Is it going to be 60?
Yeah.
I think Denmark had done 60. So we were like, seems unlikely it'd be more than that. And then came out and said we're going to cover 80% of everyone's salary. And I literally remember like we were all just in tears. We were all quite drunk, drinking, like everyone was drinking whatever their respective drink was in their house, watching this happen, just being like, this is unbelievable. Like all these people are going to get 80% of their salary.
So the government was covering 80% of people's salaries.
So we went from, I think at that point we probably had 250 people.
Yeah.
We went to 250 people working for Pizza Pilgrims to 248 people on furlough.
Wow.
And who were getting 80% of their salary.
Which means that you just pay 20% or
no,
their salary goes down to 80%?
They unfortunately got 80%. We couldn't afford to pay the 20%. But we took the decision at that point because we'd had so much like, I'm scared to come to work. I don't want to be. Yeah. We were like, we're not going to do Deliveroo. We're just going to shut.
Yeah.
And everyone's going to get 80% of their salary. They're going to be at home. Obviously, I would wish it was 100%, but it's not. Yeah. We subsequently topped up quite a few people to 100%, but it's difficult in an hour's business because obviously we did a lot of like what normal looks like. But anyway, we didn't have to let anyone go, which was unbelievable. Everyone stayed in the company. We closed all of our pizzerias, and we were just like sat there, like, okay, so this is weird. We're going to survive, which was amazing because at the point, there was one point where it was like, well, we'll be out of business by April.
Yeah.
So we were sat there, and then we started getting, after about 2 weeks of that, just going like, what the fuck just happened? We started getting calls from managers being like, do you know what? I'm really, really bored. And actually, if you're thinking of reopening a pizzeria to do delivery only, count me in type thing.
Nice.
That started to happen. And me and James were obviously like chomping at the bit to get a pizzeria back open because we were like, Jesus, we had all these pizzerias, all those pizza ovens burning and now they're all off. Anyway, so we decided after we had enough of those calls from enough people, we were like, let's open one. So we reopened Victoria, which had been our most recent opening. We were in what you call a rent-free period. So when you first take on a lease, you tend to agree a period of time with the landlord where you don't pay any rent, which helps to cover some of your capital expenditure. Yeah, sure. And I think we were in a sort of a year-long rent-free period on that store. So it's like, we'll open there. There's no kind of awkward conversations with landlords then about what the rent is because we're not paying rent anyway, so it's irrelevant. Yeah. So we can just open it. There's no kind of politics there. It's a good location, and we'll do Deliveroo. So that was the plan. We started gearing up for that to happen. We were all very excited to have one open again. And then my brother, being my brother, just called me one day and was like, I've had this idea to basically put the ingredients for a pizza into a box and send it through the post to someone, and then they could make a pizza at home while they're stuck at home. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you one. So he basically like put 2 dough balls, tomato sauce, mozzarella, parmesan, flour, oil, basil, literally into a pizza box in little plastic tubs, and then wrapped it in wool. There's this proper company called Wool Cool. Yeah. So you put it, I mean, it's all pretty normal now, really, but like wrapped it in wool with an ice pack, posted it to me, got it the next day through the post, opened it up. It had like exploded everywhere. But it was cold. Probed the dough, and it was like safe, refrigeration temperature. It's like, this could be a thing. So we were just looking, I think, for something to do on Instagram that was a bit more interesting than Deliveroo.
Yeah.
So like, why don't we make these kits? And this is before any restaurant meal kits existed. This is like, no one was doing it. It was the first one I'd ever seen. And why don't we make these kits? We'll put them up for sale. We'll make 50. We'll put them up for sale on Instagram. On the day we open Victoria, we'll make them available. And then we'll make them in Victoria with the team that are there. And we can just post them to people. And, it's just a fun thing for Instagram. put 50 up for sale on that Wednesday, having promoted it, I think, on the Monday. And we sold the first 50 in like under a minute, having planned to sell them in a week. And we were like, okay, this is a thing. So then we did another 50 the next day, sold them in 20 seconds. And I was starting to get my head around Shopify, and I could see that like 200 people had tried to put them in the basket in the sort of 30 seconds that they were available. And I was like, this is really interesting. So on the third day, we had this like sliding doors moment of do we try and scale this sort of, obviously there's a thing here. Do we try and slowly grow it, build our, ability to make them and like slowly expand, or do we just try and sell as many as we can? Well, so we were like, let's just put 1,100 for sale. We basically put 1,100 of these kits for sale. So like you will get them at some point before the 1st of May, bearing in mind this was the 1st of April. And we're like, I think, we'll just do that, see what happens. And we sold all 1,100 kits in 40 minutes. Wow. And it was like, I think still the most profitable hour in the history of Pizza Pilgrims. And suddenly we had this thing where it was like, holy crap, this is a thing. And we were on like Sunday brunch and we were growing this thing. We then opened another pizzeria to try and meet the demand. We kept buying like chest freezers, a bit like that. Yeah. And then we'd like get all these ice packs and we'd fill these chest freezers with ice packs and be like, cool, so what, 12 hours later you go back, you come back, they're all frozen. They weren't. So like just everything was just chaos. Restaurants and production facilities are like as far apart from each other as possible. But by February 21, we were doing 10,000 units a week of this at home.
It's not bad.
I mean, we were turning over more than we were in the restaurants before COVID. It was mental.
Bloody hell, that's cool.
So it literally, like this stupid idea just grew and grew, and it meant that we had cash flow the whole way through. We had everyone from like the Spice Girls to Stormzy to all these people made these kits. It was huge on Instagram. We grew our Instagram following by like 50,000. It was mad. And it saved the company. Remember, we had cash flow the whole way through. We were able to get a whole load of people off furlough to help us make the kits, and they obviously got their 100% payback. And we kind of feathered it in with, and then we were reopening pizzerias, and we still do Pizza in the Post today, as it was named, but it's obviously like so much smaller than it was. Yeah. But we have about 350, 400 subscribers who get it either once a week or once a month.
It's a subscription box type thing.
It now is a subscription.
Yeah. And recurring revenue. Love it.
Yeah, exactly. And, it meant that we never, ever sat still in COVID. It actually like made, certainly for the parts of the world where we don't have a pizzeria, people in Edinburgh have now heard of us where they wouldn't have done before. Yeah. And it was an amazing solution to the problem, basically.
Love it. What are your thoughts on franchises?
I've had such a weird U-turn on this recently. I was always like, the word franchise just implies like no one gives a shit, sort of like just grow it for the sake of growing it, like corporate nonsense. Then I watched The Founder. Have you watched The Founder?
No, I haven't. What is that?
It's phenomenal. Just because I love Michael Keaton with all of my heart, but it's basically about the guy who first discovered McDonald's in San Bernardino. Two brothers running this amazing restaurant. Ray Kroc, exactly.
And then he's like something about the systems. It's a classic like business case study of like
it's amazing.
Systems. It's like systemize the shit out of everything.
It's got such a lovely apocryphal start though, where Ray Kroc was a salesman of milkshake mixing machines that made 5 at once, not one. And it was sort of like famously like no one needs to make 5 at once because it's overkill. Like you just make 1 at a time and maybe buy 2 machines if you need to make 2. Anyway, he got this call from this restaurant in San Bernardino being like, we need 8 of these machines. He's like, no, you can't be right. Like you mean you need to make 8 milkshakes? Like, no, we need 8 5-spindle milkshake machines. So he drove out to see them, and that was McDonald's. And he was like, this is the greatest thing ever. And started, did the franchise. And I think, it's a great film. You should watch it. Yeah. But I guess the point is that like where I'm at with it is like done right and with the right selection process, your franchisee is going to be so much more engaged potentially than like a manager of a store. Now, like, not at our level, but like if you're going like, right, here you go, you can take over this McDonald's person, here's a new McDonald's, you can come and take it over, it's your business, you need to pay us a percentage, but anything you make is yours. That person is going to like, I think just absolutely gun that business and like look after the standards and be amazing at what they do, potentially better than a manager. And I think, obviously it's about picking the right things. I'm not saying that I don't think that, we work super hard with our managers and they're super engaged and Well, I think they are. They certainly seem to be.
Yeah.
And, done right. But I could see if you're like, right, we're going to open 300 of these, it would be easier to do it with franchisees than it would be. And you'd get a better outcome for everyone. But, it's a difficult one because restaurant margins are tight. And like, if you've got to give 5% to someone, that's a big chunk of your potential upside. Where it gets smart with McDonald's is they basically became the landowner, and that's where they make all their money.
Yeah. What's the story behind Pizza Academy?
So the Pizza Academy opened in March 2020, which is an inauspicious time to open a restaurant. But the idea was that we wanted to create. I hate the idea that people think of hospitality as like not a great job or a good career and that it's easy. They're the two things that drive me mad. I personally believe you should go and do your university degree, then you should go and do a year working in a restaurant, and you will learn so much about people, about teamwork, about like problem solving and just general life in that year. Whatever you then go on and do, you'll be better at it. So that idea combined with the idea that like actually to start, if your first shift in Pizza Pilgrims is in Carnaby Street on Saturday night, it's busy and intense and not a good place to learn. So you're like, wouldn't it be great if we could have a place where it was like a central point of truth about how we do stuff? It's a pizzeria, as in like there are real live humans in there who are customers, but it's kind of quieter. And we can kind of teach people the way to do it in a kind of controlled environment, but it is actually a real environment. And that was the idea for the academy. So it's a space in Camden. It's split into three. There's a small restaurant at the front that's open all the time. So like on a Monday lunch, probably about 20 seats in the front, and that's just always open. And then we have a front of house training section in the middle with a bar and like a projector and like we kind of we do everything from like mental health awareness to how to do your stock control to we do a big warm welcome there once a month where all the new joiners meet me and James and we chat about the company and stuff. And then the back we've got a back of house recruitment, so we've got like bleacher seating, you can watch and like learn about the new menu items, and it's just a big old space where you can learn about how to make pizza. And every head chef and manager who starts the company now starts through there, and everyone within their first month has to go there in some capacity to like do a course or like, and I think you can apply to do more. So it's interesting that people who like really want to progress themselves will push to be there more. And it's been a really lovely little lovely exercise in trying to do something. I mean, it breaks even as a pizzeria, which was a hard sell to the board because it was like, we've got to spend a whole chunk of money building a pizzeria that will make no money, but it will actually help the whole company. But I genuinely think it has helped the whole company. And I think we're still learning really what it's about. But I guess my aim is that every single person in the company can learn something there, whether it's your first day and you're learning the absolute basics or meeting me or James, to, you're a board member and you've been in the industry for 40 years. And actually we had a talk of, we had Fred Syriacs from First Dates come and talk to us about hospitality there. Yeah. We're going to get, I'm obsessed with getting someone from an airline because I feel like dealing with customers at 30,000 feet that are there for 12 hours that have paid you a lot of money that are difficult, that is tough.
Yeah.
And so actually what are the things that they teach you, British Airways or Virgin Airways or whatever, to deal with that? Because actually our person who's paid £10 for a pizza and is only going to be there 30 minutes is easy compared to that person.
Nice. That's cool. I read something about you guys, you employ homeless people and ex-convicts and stuff.
So that's what we do. So that's a big part of what the Academy is about as well. So we've done we've worked with two charities, one called The Passage, they're based in Victoria, and another called Only a Pavement Away. And it's about exactly that, giving ex-convicts or people who are homeless or have been homeless a kind of a second start in life, I guess. And I just feel so fundamentally that hospitality is a great match for that because it's almost all about attitude and not about skill. Obviously, it's skill to be a pizza chef and you learn your skills, but we can teach you the skills. It's very much about your attitude. And I think giving people a chance to kind of come and, rediscover themselves, surrounded by people, they're not like on their own, they're not, they're in a support network, is a great way to do it. So we're trying to do more of that as much as we can to bring people back off the streets into work.
Yeah, this is one thing that I've been thinking about a lot around what's the point of growing the business? Because once you hit a certain profit margin, you're just more money in our EBITDA sort of PDF is not that personally meaningful. And so I'm trying to figure out for our business, what's the service component, like giving back and stuff. And it feels kind of cringe talking about it as well, because people like virtue signaling and all that shit.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, like, how do you think about that?
I mean, I absolutely have obsessed about this, and I think it's, if you really push me, I'll get onto like sort of failing of capitalism type thing of like, we just always want more, and like if more people knew where stop was, everyone would be better off probably. But I think in a very small way that doesn't really work for something like even Pizza Pilgrims, because you're right, like there's no need for the company to grow, but if it doesn't grow, the whole mindset around it changes. Now, I think the question is, can it grow? Does it have to grow in scale? Could it grow in like stature or responsibility like that? But if it's not growing in one of those ways, everyone's going to lose interest, or certainly I will lose interest.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And it's not giving genuinely, and I mean this in the kind of the most obvious way, like our great people need to be growing. Yeah. And if you're a head chef today, what's next?
Yeah.
And if it's not, well, we've grown, so I now need to look after 2 other head chefs and move into a higher level. Or do you know what? We now need a head of health and safety, so I'm going to go and be that. Or we need someone in the creative food team, I'm going to go and be that. If you're not growing, if we'd stopped at 10, we wouldn't have the money to have a food team or a health and safety person. Yeah. We have a third party health and safety team. But so yeah, I think, at a small level, you've got to grow to kind of give your team opportunity.
Yeah.
But the danger is you do just end up, if you're doing that the wrong way, if you're taking then debt on to grow, and then you've got to service the debt, and then it's sort of it's a vicious circle. So we've always been very, very conscious that if we're growing because we kind of feel like we're gonna break at the seams if we don't. Yeah,
interesting. I did a good interview with Steve Bartlett yesterday, and he was saying that one of the main reasons for their growth, one of the ways he thinks about it is, if a team member is not challenged in their job, they will leave within 6 months.
100%.
And so he's constantly like keeping an eye on like making sure everyone is 1 foot outside of their comfort zone, to make sure there's like some level of discomfort, so that they then feel like they're part of something. And just in general, like the feeling of growth for people is just an addictive feeling. And I found that with my first business, I was teaching courses helping people get into medical school. We grew, and then 2015 to 2016, we dipped in revenue. And all of a sudden, it was just like night and day difference between how I felt about it. I was just like, oh God. Yeah. Now, either we double down on this and really make it grow, but now my heart's not in it, or I really like it. And growth, weirdly, the stuff that I was doing to grow that business, I wouldn't have said it was particularly fun. It was like a lot of admin, a lot of logistics, a lot of bloody printing booklets and making sure they arrive at the Manchester hotel room, and making sure the team members who taking the train, there's no strikes to get there on time, so we can teach the kids that are there. And but it was growing, and there was something so exciting about the fact that it was growing. Yeah. And as soon as it stopped growing, now all of those things are just like an absolute nightmare to deal with. And I'm like, why the hell am I spending my time doing this stuff? Yeah. Have you found that at all? Like, the growth is addictive?
It is addictive, and I think it's it's so hard. It's so hard to start again. And I think with COVID, you really did have to start again. And I think you really were like back down again, like rebuilding. And like some of the stuff you thought you'd done, you were kind of having to pretty much fundamentally rebuild. So yeah, I totally get that. And I think, the thing I say most is like, I just want to be learning. Like everything else is irrelevant. If I'm not learning something, I'm going to be bored. And I think that applies to, the vast majority of people in our business. And we really want to employ people who are driven by that, because I think a lot of people, I think there are 2 types of people who will come into our business and be a KP, which is like, washing the pots and like you're starting rung on the ladder. Yeah. And one of them is like, this is the starting rung on the ladder. And I'm looking at the prep chef going, how do I be a prep chef? And then I'm looking at the junior chef being like, how do I do that? That is the person I think, we want to have in Pizza Pilgrims, really. But then there are plenty of people who just, some of them who work for us for many, many years who don't want that. They want, work is not what drives them. Yeah. They come to work, they do their job, they go home, and what drives them is family or, community or, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. But like, so you've got to be able to do both. You've got to accept that some people are just not built that way. They don't want that constant next thing. They just want, to know what their job looks like, to get a fair pay for it, take it home and spend that how they want. And I think it's a hard line to walk. But I mean, I always said we'd never go past 15, and here we are. 24.
Yeah.
So, either I'm a liar or I'm an idiot or I don't know. But yeah, it's just making sure that it's we've been lucky in that we've never got where it gets bad is when you're doing it for the wrong reasons. When you're like, oh, this one didn't work, so I'm going to do 2 and I'll get economies of scale and then it will work. It's like, no, it won't. Or I've taken out a massive loan and it's not working, so I'm going to have to like keep going. To that's the bit that if that's driving you, then you should probably stop.
Yeah, there was a good quote I heard at a business conference, which is that, like, if you think you're a bad parent with 1 kid, then for God's sake, don't have a second one thinking you're going to be a better parent for 2.
Yeah, exactly. Although there is a weird thing about, like, obviously not in the very early days, but like the kids will look after each other. So like
economies of scale.
Maybe the businesses are doing that. Maybe having more of them just means there's more of a network.
Yeah.
But it's interesting for us. Sorry, draw that out. But it's interesting for us. Building that network in London is a real thing, and like the pizzerias can help each other out. And like I've run out of that, cool, I can get that sorted for you, no problem. But then you have a new thing where like we opened in Nottingham. We have one pizzeria in Nottingham, and it's not near to any of our other pizzerias, and they are very much more an island. Like that person has to be so much more on it. There's no room for like, do you know what, I've run out of X, because no one can save you.
Yeah, and
it's a very different mentality. Like when you realize having one is there's nowhere to hide.
How do you balance family life? I'm like married, 2 kids, and also founded a business in the food industry that's growing for the last 10 years.
Yeah, it's it's definitely not easy, and I definitely don't balance it as well as I potentially could. I mean, I guess my problem really is I'm kind of there a lot, as in like physically at home. I try and get home at sort of certainly be home for bedtime and all that kind of stuff, and I don't leave the house at 6. So I see the kids in the morning and in the evening, and I take them to school quite a lot and that kind of thing. But am I like mentally there? No, quite a lot of the time, because my phone's going off and I've got a thing and I'm there with the kids, but I'm actually replying to an email or dealing with some kind of emergency. And I think that's been the problem for me. And certainly what my wife would say is like, well, she basically is like, if iPhones existed when we met, we wouldn't be together. Like, which I mean, I know they did exist, but I didn't have one.
Yeah.
And I think, they are a little like. They're a little attention-sucking nightmare, aren't they? And
or
you
kids
kind of
or business,
both. I was talking actually specifically about iPhones. Like, there's no escape.
Yeah,
like there's no escape from it, and it's you've got to learn to turn it off. And I'm trying my best. But
nice. Have there been any sort of rules or systems you've added to your life that have been helpful in maintaining this sort of harmony or balance?
I mean, I'll be honest. I've tried like almost all of those like things, all those kind of productivity tools. I have never found. I've always found it a bit like doing a sort of revision timetable, which I'm just like, I feel like I'm just putting off doing the stuff rather than like actually I'm spending all the time, color coding it and making it all perfect. And so actually, it's interesting at the moment. I'm just at this weird transition, which I'm trying to sort of resist. Of like, we now have a sort of a lady who looks after the management team diaries, essentially. And I've always been like, I just don't really understand why it would help me to bring in someone to help me with this, because I feel like I know exactly what's going on in my week.
Yep.
I know where my priorities are and I feel like I'm going to have to like communicate all of this to someone else for them to do it. And I don't really feel like it's going to make my life easier. So I've sort of resisted that idea of the future. But yeah, I just use, I'm obsessed about my calendar. I have a family calendar and a work calendar. Nice. And they, making sure that they talk to each other and that like, everyone's aware of what's going on. My wife works, she actually also works for a restaurant business. She works for Dishoom.
Oh yeah.
Nice. So she, she's busy as well. So yeah, sadly, no exciting kind of life hacks in there. Just go. Yeah, I think staying close to it and not letting someone else manage your diary, to me that makes no sense. But
final question. It comes from Arnav from our Telegram community. What lessons have you learned from running Pizza Pilgrims that you could share with aspiring entrepreneurs?
I think it's such a cliche thing, but like. No one knows what they're doing, like especially in restaurants. So don't overthink it. Like, if you've got an idea and you like it, think of any way you can test it that will give you a bit more insight into whether the idea is a goer, whether you actually enjoy it, whether it's something that's there's a need for it, without quitting your job. So you don't have to like throw everything in on day one. Just start testing the fences a little bit. But the other thing is, don't go away. To my mind, like, I could have gone, right, I want to run a pizza company. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go and work for Pizza Express for 10 years and figure out exactly how they do everything. And then I can go away. And I don't think that would have set me up any more for success than just having a crack and doing it your way. And I think if you are that way minded, if the white blank piece of paper is something that excites you, you'll figure it out, because that's how you're built. If you're a person who likes the structure and likes to know that their pay packet lands on the last Friday of every month and likes to know that there is a team of people out there to help you, I think you've got to think really, really hard about whether you want to run your own business. Because I think there's definitely a danger. I love that it's celebrated more, and that, like, entrepreneurship, which is not a word that I particularly love, is kind of now genuinely considered something to aspire to rather than something that only crazy people do. I feel like that has changed. Now, entrepreneurs are now like very much put up on a pedestal, whereas I think 20 years ago that was not the case. It was your Gordon Geckos that was on a pedestal. 30 years ago probably. And so, I think it's good that it's on a pedestal, but I think the danger is that it's like it's for everyone, or that it's like the ultimate goal. And I don't think it is. I think it's fantastic for certain kinds of people, but it has downsides, and it's not, we can't all be the guitarist in Led Zeppelin, right? Like everyone wants to be, and it looks cool, but I'm sure it had some massive downsides, and not everyone can do it. And so, like, I really think, it's a great thing to try, and like, try it in the most, if you want to start a food business, go and do a weekend market for one Saturday and see if you enjoy it, because, you might hate it. So yeah, I think it's, I guess my actual lesson of the deep in there was like, don't overthink it. Don't think that everyone knows everything you don't know. And like, give it a shot. Like, what's the worst that could happen?
Nice. It's a great place to end this. Tom, thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
All right, so that's it for this week's episode of Deep Dive. Thank you so much for watching or listening. All the links and resources that we mentioned in the podcast are going to be linked down in the video description or in the show notes, depending on where you're watching or listening to this. If you're listening to this on a podcast platform, then do please leave us a review on the iTunes store. It really helps other people discover the podcast. Or if you're watching this in full HD or 4K on YouTube, then you can leave a comment down below and ask any questions or any insights or any thoughts about the episode. That would be awesome. And if you enjoyed this episode, you might like to check out this episode here as well, which links in with some of the stuff that we talked about in the episode. So thanks for watching. Do hit the subscribe button if you aren't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.